Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel. Hello. Thank you.
Hello.
So today we're going to be talking about the Minecraft Construction Handbook. I'm Matt, and this is Phil.
Hello.
And together we're known as Fire UK. Before we kind of jump into anything here, we're going to show a quick trailer, and then we'll jump in and start talking about everything.
The mightiest builds start with a single block. A block becomes a home. A home becomes a village. A village becomes a kingdom. The Construction Handbook will guide you on your journey to becoming a master builder. Create something amazing.
Okay, there we go. So that is the trailer for the book that we wrote, which is now on the screen. There we go. It's wait for it on the screen. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. So I'm Matt, like I said earlier. This is Phil, and our skins are represented on the screen right there. Our in-game skins. You have a new one, Phil.
I know. I have a shinier one than the last talk that I did actually on there. So.
Yeah. So I had to rechange everything and add.
Sorry about that. I had to make you do
thanks.
some extra work.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about everything that was writing this book, as well as updating it, because there's 2 new chapters in there in the newest version. And we're kind of going to go through, talk about our favorite chapters, what it was like to build those, and lots of really cool things. But I think before we jump into that, why don't we tell people a little bit more about us?
About who we are.
About who we are, exactly.
Who we are as people.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we said, like we were both each half of Fire K. My name is Phil. And the reason that I'm wearing the wonderful shirt is I'm actually working this event as one of the content coordinators. So I deal with YouTubers. So I organize the panels and
so you organize yourself.
And I organized myself on a panel. So it's kind of a weird situation I ended up in.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
Yeah,
everything's kind of gone the way it has, in a good way. Not interesting in a bad way. Interesting in a good way. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's kind of like my organizational side of Fire kind of turned into an actual job. So
yeah. Which is really cool. So at Fire, I've been doing lots of video stuff. Is basically what I kind of started with and what I did. But both of us, we love building. We're both super into building in Minecraft, which is obviously why we were lucky enough to be chosen to write this book and kind of build all these really cool things that is in it. So if anyone in here hasn't seen it before, there's just a plethora of information inside it, from building houses to building castles and walls and ships and everything. Really, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that we'll get into more as this panel goes on. But it was just really, really cool to kind of do that. And I guess as you're saying about Fire UK, that's kind of our background. We have. We've been doing this for 5 years now, where we've been building these huge things in Minecraft, these different cities, these different keeps, these different castles, these different palaces, everything. We've built loads of really, really cool things. Again, I'm just trying to pass time while this plays on for a little bit more. How else do you want to explain Fire?
It's awesome.
That's not more time
We're
passing.
Awesome. No, that's not more time passing, is it? It's kind of hard to feel like. We got approached by this a very long time ago, actually, before we even knew how big it was going to be. It's really kind of taken us by surprise as to how well the book has actually done and how you guys have all kind of reacted to it, really.
Yeah.
We got approached by Lydia literally a couple of years ago now, literally saying hey, we're writing a book thing. Do you want to just write a few bits for it? And we just kind of thought, yeah, we'll write a few bits and pieces here and there, and then it kind of turned into us writing half of the book each. And then the book becoming bestseller on Amazon for
went crazy.
3 weeks or something.
The journey we've been on because of this book. I mean, everything from National Book Awards to here today. It's been a crazy journey.
I didn't know what we really expected from it, but it just literally caught us off guard because it was just suddenly out there and people were reading it and people coming up to us. And then honestly, everyone that I've spoken to about it has always said oh yeah, no, you wrote that one? I've seen that everywhere. It's always when I'm talking to parents, stuff oh, my kids are really into that one.
Yeah. the blue one is how I usually go, it's the blue one. And they're like, what are the other ones? And I'm like,
Thank you for color coding it. Sorry, I just want to give a shout out to Eggman, who are sitting on the front here. Can we just get a round of applause for them, because they actually did a lot of the hard work on this.
So Egmont are our publishers. They published the book and everything, and they did just an amazing job.
And now we've thoroughly embarrassed them in front of a lot of people, so we fulfilled that.
No,
But
I mean, it's one of those things where I'm just going to skip along, because we're at the point where we can start talking a little bit more. This is Fire UK, so let's jump in here. So this is some of the stuff that we've done as Fire UK, as a YouTube channel, and this is the reason why we were chosen so much, was really to because of our expertise within building within Minecraft. So we had built all these things before we'd even started, and we've built more and more things since then. So it's one of those really cool things where we get to turn what we love and what we do in Minecraft into something that hundreds of thousands of people can actually read and learn things from.
Yeah.
Because we get asked all the time, like, oh, can you guys do tutorials on YouTube and all that kind of stuff? And to us now, we just go, hey, just pick up the construction handbook, because that's so much more of a simple thing to say than, yeah, we don't really have time to do tutorials. It would take way too long.
If we were doing the video, we'd have to I mean, I guess it's the sort of thing like writing a book compared to actually making videos and stuff on it, is that the videos, you almost kind of feel like you have to kind of keep updating and you have to keep making new ones and stuff like that, and it's almost like you have to talk and explain like the whole thing, whereas when writing the book, we literally laid everything out, made it very clear. We looked at the whole finished product and we're like, yeah, no, this is exactly what we want to have from there. And you can stop reading bits of it, you can choose specific bits to jump to depending on what you want to read, and for us it just felt like a lot better of a fit for us to actually hand off our process and how we actually do things, and just give a little bit of an insight into how we actually produce it. And then we actually got the books like in some of our time lapses as well, because we thought,
on that second shelf they appeared there, which I think is a really cool thing, that you can kind of have
so
something
the
in real life
videos got us the book, and then the book has now gone back into the videos.
It's
so
crazy.
now we have to do another book on the videos that are. Wait,
Well,
now I'm
that's
confused.
like some
I think we're going too
Inception
far
stuff.
into that now. I think we need to stop.
So again, we're looking at some of the work here that we've done, and really it's kind of humbling to see that we managed to get our work featured in such a big way, because obviously at the end of every chapter there are these 2 pages that are community based, and some of those are us and some of them are other people. And as Fire UK, we haven't just done really cool builds, we've also done really crazy cool like game modes, like Hunger Games. This was one of our Hunger Games maps that we did, and it shows that Minecraft is just not just a a game where you build things or a game where you survive. There's so many different things, there's many different game modes, different little games you can play, and really cool elements of Minecraft that aren't often seen in a lot of ways. But in the combat handbook, I actually wrote about this map that is being shown right now.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we kind of like trickled our way into the other books a little bit as well, which is
They
it's
just kept
exciting.
saying, do you want to write more? Do you want to write more? And we're like, okay.
Always just keep writing more. Yeah. It's really fun. And I think, the books in a way capture that, Minecraft isn't just one thing. It's this plethora of so many different cool things that you can do, which is really exciting, such as this, which is a science fiction style
How
build.
well have you rehearsed this yourself before bringing it along?
Well,
these
I've only done
these
this once
segues are
before.
just absolutely.
Can you tell that I did this by myself at one point? You left me.
I'm sorry.
No, but this is just shows as well all the other things that you can do in Minecraft. This is a science fiction time-lapse that we did where you're in space. It doesn't even look like Minecraft. It looks totally different, and that's really something that we try to teach people, is how to build all these different things that don't necessarily look like Minecraft. They look like real-world counterparts of those things, which is something, is really difficult to see in Minecraft a lot of the time,
I
I
guess the
think.
joy and the appeal that we sort of see from it is that we can literally take any kind of inspiration from the latest movie we've seen. We can take it from a book that we've just finished reading. Anything at all that we're kind of like involved with, like we're seeing the real world, we can take those ideas and just replicate it in the game, depending.
Yeah.
And it's all the same sort of process. Like when people say, like, how did you make that talent compared to that one? The processes we're building usually all start and run in the exact same format. It's the same in a way as like movie making to a certain degree.
Yeah.
It's like, you always have to start with like, coming up with your base ideas and doing like kind of templates and like storyboarding type things.
It's like drafts. You go through the
Yeah.
different phases of drafts. You start somewhere and you always end up with an amazing finished product. But that first draft might just be terrible. You have to really iterate and kind of make something really cool and really good. And again, with Fire UK, we've kind of gone on a really long journey. We started building in Minecraft at the end of 2010, and 5 years later, we're still doing this. We're still building really cool things. We still have a really great community who build amazing things, and we still, really enjoy getting in. We've been building recently in the Mionite series with Captain Sparkles and Syndicate and people like that. And it's like every single day we were on live stream building really cool things, and being really creative. And I think that's who we are in a way. We are creative people. And hopefully that comes through in the book as well. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of creativity gone into that.
I mean, like we said on the title of the actual book, is that, you know, it's a guidebook of, you know, just general construction and overall really creativity. Like, we try to really capture the fact that it doesn't matter what you're trying to build, and even the stuff that's actually in there, even if you already know how to build a house, you know, you've done one, you know, maybe you built 100 houses and stuff like that, then hopefully some still like cool little bits in there, and other techniques that you might not try that might not even apply to the actual house bit itself. They might actually apply to another type of build that you're doing. But yeah, we do pretty much just try to cover an overall basis of just, you know, here's how we build, here's our sort of like take on how we've gotten to where we've gotten, how we sort of like help manage our teams, how we learn that, you know, it doesn't matter what we've actually built. Like, I mean, even in the time that's there, we noticed it earlier that like we built like that entire circle around there, like that entire archway, and then we basically.
We're in.
Oh, we're in.
We're in.
We're in on the actual book from the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we literally like we built that entire ring and then had to tear half of it down to build up another structure. So it's like it's pretty much learning to cope with those sort of things of like you want to start building and you want it to be perfect from the start, but you just kind of have to be a little bit rough around the edges. Like it's almost like sketching in a way.
Yeah,
like
and
you don't
pretty
finish
much
with an
what
art
I'm
bit.
doing right here. So this is the first time-lapse that we're going to be showing in the panel today, and this is literally what you're talking about here, is laying an outline down and figuring out this shape. So right here, I'm going to be building, this is something obviously I recorded earlier because I've sped it up. It's like Art Attack. This is something I built earlier. So this is the house from chapter 1 of the construction handbook. So literally as soon as you open that, that first thing that you see there is this house. You know, this is the first thing. And I wanted to kind of recreate that so all of you here at MINECON can kind of get an idea of what you could build in about 40 minutes or so, you know, just by picking up the book and jumping into Minecraft.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of techniques in this first chapter. And it's kind of like, you know, you start with like the walls and you kind of go on and go on and go on. But I think that's, you know, one of the really good things about Minecraft is you don't have to, you know, worry a lot of the time. You can kind of just go at it and just see what comes out of it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's something that, like, it was really cool when we were actually sitting down to write through the chapters and stuff. Like, we literally sat down with a whole bunch of list of things. We're like, okay, what sort of things do we want to cover? Because, like, we wanted to make sure that each sort of variation of style of building was covered in at least sort of a brief description. Like, so that's why we've kind of got, like, you know, the whole section on, like, building ships and, you know, galleys and stuff like that, because that, you know, to me, that is rocket science almost of how you get a proper ship. I mean, you had a lot of fun. Like,
yeah, later on I'll show you how to build that as well. You see, you haven't seen this presentation yet. It's great.
But you still left the bit where you made a mistake in
I did leave the bit where I made a mistake. I almost thought about editing it out, but I'll see if anyone here spots when I make a mistake in about 2 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, we literally went through, we sat down and we divvied out sort of half the chapters each. So you took on house, you did walls.
Galleon, and there's always one I always forget.
You would have
I
thought
always
that
remember yours. Yours were gardens. You did the floating island. You did roller coaster. And then I always forget the other one.
See, you would have thought, having done this talk a couple of times now,
I've done this talk like
we would have
6
remembered
times
which chapter. It's always different chapters we forget as well.
It is, because I like usually I think the first time I forgot walls.
Yeah.
I think our brains are we're just getting old.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, okay, you didn't like that, okay.
But yeah, so yeah, writing the chapters was really fun as well because we sort of played to different strengths, and I definitely tried to take an approach of, because when we, through Egmont being a children's publisher, we wanted to make sure that we had both, you know, stuff in there that was good for a younger audience, but also stuff that would be good for, you know, the more mature people that, you know, are already quite familiar with Minecraft and, you know, already know a lot of the basics. So we wanted to cover like a wide range of making sure that whether you're a, you know, beginner to Minecraft or whether you're well experienced, there's going to be some stuff in there that you can pick up on. Like you went very much into a lot of like architectural detail and stuff on a lot of things.
Yeah, I tried to kind of, I suppose, get a little bit maybe too detailed at times. I believe, you know, that had to be kind of edited down and made a little bit more kid-friendly because, you know, when I start talking about, you know, like...
Steph is nodding at you.
Well, when I start talking about, like, juxtaposition of colors and, you know, the aesthetics of things, maybe that's a little bit too advanced for some audiences. But, you know, that's just how I write, you know. I really want to look at this as much as possible as almost like an architectural book for all ages, you know, and that teaches you how to build really cool things in Minecraft. Yeah. Are you realizing that I'm making the mistake now? And you were going to point it out, weren't you?
I was going to point it out.
And I just did anyway. Oh, why? Why?
And then he looks at it.
No.
And he stares.
No. And I'm like, what have I done? That's not a roof, Matt. I'm just going to leave it, and I'll fix it later. Oh, it's fine. Yeah. So, I mean, what for you do you think were your favorite chapters, like for you, the ones that you wrote?
I think honestly the favorite part of actually all of the book for me was looking through all of the community stuff, like the community showcase
Yeah,
stuff. Like, I mean, going through the step-by-step bit was always like kind of a tricky thing. But when it comes to the community showcase, like it was just a good excuse to just look at all of the amazing builds out there and just literally compile it and look at stuff that we had on the server that I hadn't actually seen before.
Yeah.
Like there was some stuff on the server that I kind of was like, I don't really know if there's anything, and then I had a look around and I found some like some absolute
Do you remember
gems.
the very first day we started working on this, and we were on that server where there's the flatlands, and
Yes.
I built this house. This was the very first thing we built for this book. It was me building this house, and you built a house as well. It was kind of like a build-off between me and you.
And
then
I gave
after
up.
that- yeah, you gave up, and then afterwards. We built like this roller coaster, and we just kept playing on this roller coaster for nearly like 3 hours. It was just us going around this roller coaster.
We imported a lot of them because we wanted to test them and make
Yeah.
sure they were good quality roller coasters for the actual
totally.
book.
Yeah.
So it was a strict work-related
no, totally.
3-hour session of messing around with roller coasters.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can enjoy your work from time
Definitely.
to time. But yeah, it was a really fun process because we literally kind of went through and then we sort of realized which ones you were definitely going to pick up and which ones I was enjoying picking up. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
I
it
think
was
certain things just gel with people in certain ways. Like I know I really wanted to do the Galleon one because I wanted to do the whole thing about the billowing sails, and I know you wanted to do Floating Island because you wanted to build like some really cool show terraforming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something really difficult that you got across really well in the chapter was that you get to actually like learn how to build ground almost, which is a really difficult thing because we usually do that with like mods.
It was by far the hardest one I think I actually did because I love actually sculpting like and doing a lot of terraforming, but I use like a voxel sniper and World a lot to actually kind of like modify it and just really save myself time more than anything. It's not really something that you have to have.
Yeah.
But it was taking that process down and sort of I think looking at it there, like I'm actually quite happy. At first I was a bit like, nah, it's okay. And then I kind of went back, I was like, wait, no, I actually did that by hand. So,
Yeah.
and then going through and literally learning that technique of making a floating island, like without any additional mods. So like, stuff that you can literally build on console editions and stuff
Yeah, that's the thing is we wanted to make this as accessible from all versions of Minecraft as well. So you could literally go in and use the step-by-step guide and build those things in Pocket Edition.
Yeah.
Or in Xbox or in PlayStation or in the PC version. It doesn't matter what version. You can literally replicate what is going on in the construction handbook on any of those versions. But also, which is the key thing I think, is that you can take what you learn from those books, all of the books, and apply it to your own techniques for your own thing. So if you want to make like a redstone creation of your own, that can be stuff you've learned from the redstone handbook. Or if you want to build a really cool thing, it's not all from the construction handbook. It's not all about replicating exactly. I think it's really nice to rebuild something that you've seen in the book and follow the guide. But I think really it's all about the people going out there and then building their own really cool things using the techniques that we've taught them.
I think that's what we tried to leave out, like especially like in the house one. Apart from the chapter we did do about like interiors and stuff, we tried to leave them kind of open because we've actually had like people come to us and say like, oh yeah, no, I really like that bit, and then someone's like, oh yeah, no, I made a house for like me and my family in there, and then someone said, I was like, oh well, I made like an old ye olde medieval tavern, but it was the same outer structure and everything for it, but it was a kind of a base for them to work on the insides a little bit more. Like this is a house, but it can be so much more than that, should you actually want it to be.
I mean, by far from the images we've been sent on Twitter, people have been rebuilding this house the most. I think I must have seen it like 20 or 30 times in the past like 2 months, and people have like changed like the cobble on the bottom to be brick. I suppose that's another really interesting thing to talk about is how the blocks we used are really important, and people wouldn't really think about it from like a standard point, but they are like one of the key things is they have to work well together, like the contrast of blocks have to work well, and the color palette overall has to look a certain way. You can't really add like, I don't know, something from, some clay with something, one of the red clays with something that's blue, with like lapis. It just would clash too much.
Yeah.
So you've got to really think about like, does it look good? And what blocks will make something look good? And that was a kind of a challenge in itself, because we messed around with so many different types of blocks and building different ways. So
I'm really happy with the one we set them because although it's like a very like basic, here you go, building
this
really
is
great.
the time-lapse version of it, yeah.
But it makes sense having like the foundations out of stone, and you got the wooden framework and stuff
Well,
like
you
that
can
in
see
there.
here I chose cobblestone for the base of the house.
Yeah.
And then I slowly worked up from that with like the log and the different types of wood.
Yeah.
And
but
then
you can make it out of anything you want, and you can replace it any of it. Like if
you
were
could have
doing
built the ground out of wood and then everything else out of cobble. You can inverse that, or you could.
and even if you were doing it
blocks.
like if you wanted to do it more of a modern style, how not made out of wood, you could just replace the wood with like a type of clay that's like a similar sort of thing. It's more
or even
literally
wool, like white wool is used a lot in modern builds in Minecraft.
maybe
or
melon,
quartz.
melon as well.
Melon. Why would you put melon in there?
Melon house. I don't know.
Melon house. Phil.
Okay,
Mel-
maybe not melon.
no?
Well, maybe melons. Who
Well,
knows?
well, I said we were old, and you offended me with melons. I think we're even now. So we're just finishing off here, looking at the house, which is the first chapter, and it's not my favorite, but it's definitely up there. It's not my favorite. You said you really liked the community examples. Do you have a specific chapter you like the most?
Again, I think
You to choose.
if you had to force me to choose a favorite chapter overall, I think it is going to have to go back onto the roller coaster side of
You
things.
like the roller coasters?
Just because of in itself, it is just a track. You can't really get too overly creative with some of the tracks you can do. But what some people have managed to find a way of doing, dropping it through and chucking minecart off a certain bit that lead into a new area that's designed in a completely different way.
Tense this has been. This isn't going to be a roller coaster. Are you ready for what this is about to be?
I'm
going to build a ship.
You're going to build a ship.
Yeah. So my favorite chapter is out of the ones I wrote is the Galleons chapter, which is it's an incredible chapter. And I mean, I'm not saying that out of my own, because I made it. It's just because the detail that goes into it and the actual, the structure of making this is way harder than, it's by far the most advanced chapter in the book.
Yeah.
There's curves, there's billowing sails. We use different, a mix of everything from, wood to wool for the sails and stuff. So there's so much kind of different things in there and a lot of different detail that I think by far this is the chapter you want to start with least. As in you should leave this to last. You want to learn all the other techniques and then kind of be like, right, I'm going to build a boat today.
Yeah.
Because building boats is really difficult in Minecraft.
It's a good reason that that we put the difficulty levels on the actual builds and stuff as well. So it's another thing that we felt kind of key actually going into was making sure that going into each chapter before reading, you could sort of see okay, well this one's going to be quite a tricky one, so you might want to leave this one for a little bit, or if you feel up to it, more than welcome.
Yeah, that's on start of every single chapter. There's a little bar at the top that says easy, intermediate, or advanced, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that is really useful because I think you can flick through the book and be like, today I want to build this, but it says advanced. Maybe I should do one of the other ones first and kind of go back to it. And that kind of lends itself really nicely to the idea of picking up the book and just playing it, building something whenever you want. It's really nice to just be able to pick up and play and build something really cool and really different at different times.
I'm just really interested by this because I've not actually watched this footage of him building it before.
This is new.
This is the first time with me.
You get to see me build a ship.
I'm watching like a hawk to see if you've done another one.
No, I don't make mistakes. I'll tell you afterwards why I don't make mistakes.
Okay.
But no, this is it was really interesting building this again because it's one of those things where I built it for such a long time ago because we wrote the book it's been a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
It's weird to think it's been that long. So I built this ship and I kind of went through so many versions of it. If in that world, where we were playing around, later on I built this water area and I built maybe 5 or 6 different versions of this thing and started off really small and then I built a really huge one that would have taken days because it took me a week to build and I was like, right, I need to find something in the middle of these two things. And the idea really was a small pirate galleon that in my head, and it became more of a kind of homely, not scary piratey thing. We added the wood and things like that. And it is really difficult. It was between this and the bridge chapters that I really liked a lot. The bridge chapter was actually inspired by a bridge, the design of it, a bridge to where I'm originally from, up in Hull. So it's designed a little bit similarly to that. So I use kind of my own kind of area around me to kind of influence what I built. But I'd never seen a ship like this before. I just was like, let's build cool things. Maybe it was Assassin's Creed that inspired me or something like that.
Well, that's the sort of thing that we come to when it's gathering inspiration from. I mean, we included the pictures in there and we included the community spotlights because, it is to inspire you with other different styles and other techniques and way of doing it. But we use a lot of we just search online. If we're looking, I mean, there's no shame in it. If you're looking to build a pirate ship, you go on, search engines and you just search for, pirate ships, or you search for other sorts of, other ones, and you take the masts off of one, and then you kind of, in your head, you kind of piece it all together a little bit, and just, have your imagination there, and then you just sort of pick a certain point you like and just start with it, really. But I mean, how you've done the sails in there, do you want to talk about the fun of actually making?
Well, the sails are a really difficult thing. You want to start with a shape. So you want to start with any sort of basic ship. And what's interesting about this ship in itself is that there's 3 different types of sails on it. So you can kind of learn. You could do the entire ship out of one of the types, or again, 3 different like I did. You always start with that kind of basic shape.
Yeah.
And then you really want to start extruding that in one direction, which is by building another ring, and then another ring, and then another ring. And that kind of gives that depth, like it is billowing in the wind and heading in a certain direction. Right now you can see all the sails are just flat. There's nothing really interesting about them. And that's basically how you want them to be to start with. You want to start building out from that point, as I'm going to do right here. So it's always a slightly tricky thing. And again, you don't have to use white wool. You could use, any color you want, or you could add a pattern
Black
to it.
wool, red and blue.
You're going to name all of the colors.
Yellow.
Yeah, that's the color.
You can make them out of anything, really. I mean, that's the sort of joy of it. It's like we give you sort of not really like a blank version, but it's like literally like, just a store version of just like, here's your own thing, but you just add your own little like, details and taste to it, you know, over time. Like, I mean, you could make add anything onto the lower floors and everything. You could make like bunks and racks for people to sleep in. You could put cannons.
You could build a completely different ship and just use how I did the sails or something like that. Because I think by far they are the most complicated thing in the book to recreate. Because I mean, even looking at them now, like I don't remember how I built those.
You just sort of did it.
I just sort of did it.
I think that was quite a fun process for us, really, in actual writing. Was that like, people were like, oh, can you talk about like, this part of the process? And we're just kind of like, I just know it happens. Yeah. I don't really know how to explain it sometimes, but yeah, it was good.
I mean, that's building in Minecraft a lot of the time in general. Is you just do something and it's like, how do I get that in words? Which I think was a really daunting thing for us. Because we were like, oh well, this is just second nature to us. So how do we express this into a book? How do we write this down?
And considering I mean, we'd never written a book or anything like that. I mean, you did a bit of like, script writing, and we've done like sort of like storyboard planning for media stuff and video stuff, but we've never really gone in and actually like altered anything. We'd never written fully fledged stories or anything like that. But this was a nice sort of bridge for us to actually like,
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so this is another section. So very recently, all of the books actually got updated to the brand new updated editions, and the Construction Handbook was of course included in that. And I wrote 2 brand new chapters. These are slap bang in the middle of the book. One about stained glass and one about the prismarine blocks. Now, prismarine is a brand new block that Mojang added in for like the underwater temples, so where the new guardian mobs are. So I decided, for this update, I'm gonna take those new blocks and build something really cool up with it, and it's gonna be inspired by like Japanese architecture. Like when we built like a kane. So I thought, that's something we've done, and we've never really taught someone how we built one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, that was the kind of thing that we realized, like, when we wrote the book, like, so much time has to go in from, like, us, like, writing it, and then it has to go through edits. We kind of look back at it as well, like, you go through so many drafts, and then obviously the design of the book itself has to go through a few, So, actually making the book was a very lengthy process. By the time that it actually came out, we'd already made, like, a couple of extra new time lapses, so, like, we're like, oh, man, if only we could have put those, like, back in. So getting the chance to actually update the book again was, like, a nice way of being like, we kind of learned from how we did it the first time. Let's, add some extra stuff into
And there's so many new blocks now, like the prismarine and like the stained glass. Stained glass is one of those things which I really, was the first thing I went to. I want to make something about this, and we made some really cool things with stained glass. But today, for this, I'm just going to focus on the prismarine because it's blue and it's colorful and it's pretty.
It is nice and blue.
And like I was saying, like a lot of people ask, how do you build these things that you do in these time lapses? And this is a very simple, basic version of one of those pagodas from the Akane time lapse. It's very repetitive in its design. As you can see, it's me building the same thing over and over and over again. But that's literally to show.
That is very true to like actual building. Like you run with a pattern and you kind of just extend it around a little bit. Like if you've got it's the same with the wall, section that you did. Like you don't build like the whole wall and do like, well, I mean, you can put intricate detail stuff around, but you basically take one sort of shape and you just kind of repeat it, keep on, mining it around and, adding blocks into it, and and eventually you kind of go back and do another layer on top. So with this, it's like you're basically just getting the height and building it around like that, and it's the same process. You're just going round and round,
Yeah, it's
almost a little bit dizzying. Really.
It is a little bit because it's the same thing over and over again, but. Like you said, it is a process that you have to kind of get used to in Minecraft, especially when designing something like this. It is a repetitive, but can be still quite fun nature,
Because, you can take it, depending on, if you get it quicker, you can actually get quite.
I always enjoy building in Minecraft, like watching a video or listening to music, because I always feel like Minecraft itself can be quite, especially when building, can be quite a solitary thing. And
I actually found myself at one point just literally listening to something and like just coming up with ideas just in Minecraft, and then I kind of stopped and realized I had actually just been I made like a little small temple thing, and I really just been focusing on the video, just focusing on something else in the background, and not really paid too much attention to the whole build process.
And then as you can see right here, I'm changing something. Now this is a big thing that we do is. Sometimes things just don't look great, or you want to add something to a design, or you want to change a pattern a little bit. Right here I'm adding a doorway into this temple that I'm building, and I think that's something that a lot of people, you shouldn't be afraid of. You should just do it, if you want to change something in Minecraft, just change it up, make it, make that change, because I think if you finish something without making that change, in your head you're going to be like, oh well, maybe I should have done that anyway, you know?
Yeah, don't be scared to literally like change anything around that you want to, like try out different ideas, and like, even if you do like, say for this bit, you know, say you actually did like that corner bit there, and you go away for a bit and you come around and be like, I mean, it looks okay.
See, I'm changing
but
things now. You can see I'm going through and I'm like, I want to make this look a certain way. So it's a lot of like going back and looking at it and being like, right, this is going to work, this won't work, and finding something that just looks good. Now this roof pattern is just something I came up with. It's not something I've, you know, created from something else or I'm taking from something else. So if you were building something like this, you could go and take your, you know, build your own little, you know, roof design, and it doesn't have to be the same, I don't think, because I feel like roofs can be one of those things that are kind of nebulous. They kind of change and, you know, take their own shape. You know, to take, because if it was a circular building, it would be so much different to this.
Yeah, I mean, roofs are usually the type of thing that, like, you know, we always build something, and then when we come like in the templating process and we're actually like bouncing around the ideas, it's like, so what are we going to do about the roof then? Are we going to have these kind of roofs, and it's almost like, you know, with each different thing that we build, like each bit can be independent. Like, you know, with the ship, you can do the mass a certain way, you can do the sails a certain way, and changing one doesn't necessarily throw everything else out. So it's basically just like experimenting with a few different ways and just seeing, you know, what you like to look at best. Really.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I'm using all the prismarine blocks here. These are all the different types of prismarine, all kind of included in one. And I'm using some blue stained glass as well, which for everyone who's been playing Minecraft on PC, it's new to, but it's only just now, I think this week, come to Xbox. I think it was either this week or last week. It's a brand new update on our console editions of Minecraft where you can now use stained glass. So
that's pretty awesome.
I think that's really cool that now the stuff in the almost like the console editions are catching up to the updated edition of the book now. So it's almost getting to that point where, you know, you can do everything on Xbox and stuff, which is really cool. And again, you could take this design and use different blocks. You don't have to use prismarine. That just, you know, did because I thought it looked pretty cool. It's green and blue and cool.
I also like the you know, putting like the bits on like the, you know, the outside of the windows and stuff like that, like blocking off. That's a thing that we've actually done quite a lot, almost in a way to not necessarily like cheat doing the inside, but it's almost like if you've got a build that you know that you don't want anyone to kind of go into, you just want it to be like a nice standpoint from that side. You can literally forget about the whole interior of the build itself and just make it look really cool from the outside, because you know, the thing that I really like about most of what you can do in Minecraft is sort of like the cloak and dagger side of things. Like you could make something look like really impressive from really far away, and then you go up and you're like, oh,
almost like a movie set.
Yeah, literally, like, you know, it's an old western, like, you know, oh, there's a house there, and you walk around and it's just, you know, a bit of wood,
plane,
you know, just propped up by two other bits of wood. So, you know, I really like, not necessarily deceiving, but just making, you know, stuff like that. It's like, it leaves a bit of mystery as to like, I wonder what would be inside that time. You know, you can sort of like, almost in your head, create a little bit of a, you know, a story to go along with it. And that's a lot of stuff that we do, like when, you know, we make our timelapse and stuff, is we try and plan out, you know, what is the purpose of this build? Like, you know, is it, you know, this kind of city? And we always have like these, you know, elaborate paragraphs like, you know, this city was like, you know, this major thing, and then this disaster happened, and all these people moved over there. But it's stuff that never gets revealed. But it's what helps us kind of drive a little bit of a narrative to our build, so we know
adding
that, like,
a story behind anything is always a good thing, and I think it keeps you being, you know, creative, because you're coming up with new ideas and you can add to that. And I think that's what's really interesting again about the construction handbook, is you could literally take everything, all the chapters, and build something out of all the chapters put together. So imagine building like a really cool town or a really cool city using all the different techniques, and you know, you could create a story about that, you could create characters about that, and it could be really, really interesting just to kind of see where you could go with just taking the ideas from the construction handbook and kind of scaling that up more and more and more. I think that's a really, really interesting kind of way of taking it. So as we're coming to like the end of this section here where I'm building this, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about this sort of pattern of design for roofs. It's very, I guess, annoying to design like this, because it's just slabs and stairs and really just kind of like continuous design. And now I've got to design something that's going to look like a good roof. And that's never an easy way to do it, especially when I've created these really kind of almost elegant, you know, edges to it. What am I going to do to build up? And that was something that when I was building this, it was kind of like going on in my head. I'm like, right, I'm going to have to come up with something cool that's going to actually work here. And you can see me kind of toying around with ideas, and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm going to do here, but I'm recording. This is going to be for a presentation. I need to do something. So, you know, I start building, and it actually kind of organically comes out, which I think is something you learn with Minecraft over time. You get these like organic builds that just start, you know, coming out of you. It's almost like second nature.
I mean, that's something that we do with a lot of our time-lapses, where we have a certain element to it that is sort of pre-planned, and we're like, okay, we've already kind of like, you know, gone through the stage and built this a couple of times, we know we're doing that. But then a lot of it is just like, you know, we don't really know what we want to have, so we're just going to literally throw the cameras on, get a bunch of people, and then we'll just see what ideas kind of come out. And, you know, there are always the builds that are like, you know, even like we started building them, and then we're like, yeah, this isn't actually fitting in with the theme. We're going to go take this down and change it. But even in that process, you know, we've had it where we've built something that's not worked that well, but that has given someone else an idea of like, oh, well, maybe actually if you did it just like that, that would actually look really cool, and you end up with something a little bit better. So, I mean, it's one of the great things about like sort of building like with someone else or like as part of a team and stuff. But I mean, even just doing it yourself, like, you know, you build that roof like, you know, in a couple of different variations, you know, you do that sort of style, and then you realize, it's not really working out, but then you come out with something better at the end of
I
it.
suppose that's also adding back what you were saying about other people. It's really interesting because Minecraft is a multiplayer game, is when you build with other people, because you start doing something and then someone else does something completely different. And then merging those ideas can just come up with the most creative, like expressive different builds, and they're really, really cool. And I think a lot of the builds that we've done wouldn't even look nearly as good as they do or nearly as creative as they do if it was just me and you. Just because there's so many other people who work with us and so many great builders, you know, they kind of influence us and we influence them because we're all, you know, building in Minecraft and doing really, really cool things.
And there's the whole thing sped
This
up.
is, yeah, this is the full thing. It's definitely an interesting thing to build. I mean, it's not the most fun because it is very repetitive. But again, that's the thing about the squids.
Just look at the squids just coming along and just hanging out for a bit,
They wanted to watch me build. And I think
And
that's,
then they left.
but that, yeah, then they left. They just swam away. I think there's one right on the side of it. They're back again. I like how we're just watching squids. It's great.
We've developed this amazing thing, and we're more entertained by the just squids going. Ooh.
Yeah, but I think that's a really interesting look at how we kind of, you know, built this, how we kind of looked at, you know, Minecraft in a different way to create, you know, a book that was really interesting for hopefully people to read and also learn from, because overall it's not, you know, just a normal book that's going to be one thing or the other. You know, it's something like entirely different. You know, it's got lots of different things to it. It's got the writing, it's got the pictures, and it's got these examples where you can learn from and kind of get like experience and examples and inspiration from. And I think overall, you know, it's been just one of those things which are crazy. You know, these are some other of our builds here that are filmed in default, and it's just great. These are some of the community examples as well. So you can see, you know, with enough time and enough effort and enough kind of, you know, of your own kind of time put into it, or if you're working with friends, you can create things like this. Yeah. This was actually one of the community examples for House.
I know, it's a bit of an overkill of a house, but well, you know, at the same time, it's pretty. You know, it's pretty appropriate. So. And
we built that 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it's been 5 years since we built that.
Oh,
and
wow.
It still looks that good today. I'm not sure about the terraforming around it, but the build itself.
What I find really funny about that is that when we actually made that, the logs weren't actually, like, you couldn't place them horizontal. You can't, like, directionally place them, so they were all sticking up.
Yeah, I don't think they added, like, directional block placing until, like,
and then we updated, and I went back and looked at it, and I was like, I'm going to have to spend, like, 3 hours updating this now. Yeah.
So this is Palace. This was featured in Gardens, which is one of your chapters.
Well, you know, it was a big enough build. I thought, you know, I literally did the kind of two extremes on it. Like, in the actual garden, we did the step-by-step bit was, you know, quite a small sort of like just getting you used to the ideas. Whereas I was like, this was like, well, here's just a showcase of something that's like, you know, really massive and really, you know, intricate, but it gives a better example of like, you know, what you can achieve. I think I show some
more of the inside gardens later, but you can see, you know, the scale of this build and the amount of detail in it. And the things we use to build this are all, you know, in the book. You know, you can learn how to do the things that we did in the book easily enough. It's just changing the blocks, getting a good color palette and making it all work together.
I mean, even like the patterns on the inside, you know, I mean, that sort of stuff is literally just like, you know, creating intricate patterns is like, it's a little bit of just making it up as you go along, and then a little bit of like, okay, well, we want a pattern that's going to extend into this room, and then you just sort of start in one place, mirror it a little bit, make it a little bit symmetrical, and then just kind of, you know, roll with it.
I wrote a chapter about bridges, and this is
probably the best bridge. There was actually an unofficial quote, you know, of like, you know, we build bridges. You know?
Yeah, that was
and then every single time we did, there was always a question of like, you know, we actually almost got to like filming one, and someone was like, but where's the bridge?
Oh no, we're just going to have to add a bridge in.
And we just had to add a bridge in because, you know, that's got to be like a feature point of most of our builds. In fact, I don't think there's really that many that we haven't actually had bridges on.
No, maybe not. Maybe like the Christmas one. I don't think we had a bridge in there. Oh no, we did.
No, we did, but it was on the little.
There's bridges everywhere. Our world is bridges. So this is Mage City. This is a time-lapse that we did in 2012, and you can just see, you know, the scale of this. And again, it's just applying those techniques. When we went to, you know, write the book, we wanted to make sure that, you know, someone could pick up the book and learn the techniques in Minecraft that, you know, we use on a day-to-day basis to build these things. Yeah. Because that's, you know, the main thing. You know, we want people to be able to, you know, be creative like us, build really cool things. Maybe not as huge as this, as one person. Maybe if they have some friends,
Well,
they can build.
you never
something
know. I
that's
mean, there was that one guy that built the Star Trek.
pretty cool. Oh, the Star Trek, the Enterprise,
Yeah.
Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. Man, that was crazy, that build. That was like in the first year of Minecraft. He built this huge thing.
Yeah.
I always remember that planet Earth that someone built as well in Minecraft.
Yeah. No,
It's just really, really crazy, but really cool to see that sort of creativity and that sort of, expression of their own, what they like, because I think the sci-fi build is one that got a lot of our kind of inner favorite things kind of going out because we're big sci-fi fans. But again, you can see that, we love these things. This is the gardens, in the gardens of the palace, And this just shows again that build wasn't just a front, there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough as well to have this build featured in the Minecraft calendar this year.
Yeah.
I think it was like February or...
It was. It was pretty awesome to actually see that, literally just turn it over and be like, oh, hello.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think it was literally like this shot almost, like right here. So it's really nice to see, our work being shown, in all these different places, and it's really cool to hear that. And, it's not only just for kids, I think, I've had so many different messages now from everyone, like of all different ages. I've had fan letters from like 3-year-olds, and I've had very, very well-worded emails from 50-year-olds who are like, yeah, so I read your book, and I really like this, and this, and then I have some points that I think, maybe we could do this. And I'm like, this is insane. There's people on like both ends of the spectrum who love Minecraft, and that just shows how much of an amazing game it is. And it's not just a game; it's a platform for people to do anything with. They're only kind of limited
you can
by
tell just by walking around the expo, really,
Yeah.
that you've got so many things that are relative to education, creativity,
Yeah.
just learning, coding. Like it applies to so many different things. And I think just from our perspective, just building things has just been a great outlet of just getting some ideas out there, and it's led to so many cool projects that we've worked on. And you, at the end of the day, you make something, and yes, it's just a Minecraft, but you kind of say, hey, that looks really, really awesome. It's almost like a modern art piece. So.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're coming to the end of us talking, but we do want you guys out there, if you've got any questions at all for the last few minutes, just to think in your head here, and if you've got anything at all, raise your hands up, and we'll get someone to run around with.
I mean, do we have a runner that we can run around, a volunteer?
Maybe,
Yep.
yeah.
He's just going to collect some
So, I mean,
microphones from
you
the
can
stage
literally
and
ask
stuff.
us anything about the book or FireUK in general or anything that
Yeah.
we're more than happy to answer any questions.
Oh, look at that timing.
Yeah, let me tab over to this. There we go. So, this is, it's interesting for us to be sat here talking about this book after such a long time after, actually writing it and stuff like that. But I think really it just shows that we're so engaged with it, and so is everyone else, because the people are still buying it and still reading it and still doing really cool things. So, if anyone's got any questions at all, just raise your hands
raise
up.
your hand.
It's about texture packs. Most of the builders there were using different resource packs. Do you find it difficult switching between using resource packs to make stuff like that and then switching to default to make the ones in the book?
I think I used to find it quite tricky because obviously we started in default and then we kind of went through a stage, and then we found Dokacraft quite early on when we started Fire, and it just kind of for the style of builds we were doing, it fit very, very well. But over recent times, when we've actually been doing MINECON, we've come back to sort of default, and it's been quite fun to mess around with that. And then when I was working on Yoglab stuff for Simon & Lewis, I was using a custom Smax type thing, so I got to use
So you've been
different.
jumping around between all of the texture
Yeah,
packs.
and I think each different one lends itself to a different style of build. I definitely couldn't see Dokacraft coming over into the sciencey feel of Yoglabs, but also MINECON is I feel fits quite nicely in Doka. You can add some other textures to it, but I think it just depends on which sort of palette you want to go for. If you're building some sci-fi stuff, you kind of are almost forced to go for a different sort of resource pack. But I mean, there's so many different artists out there, but
I think really resource packs in general kind of changed, especially if they're in that fantasy style, or like Minecraft normally is that medieval style. I think they more or less changed the tone of the game, the visual tone of it, rather than say if you change everything to science fiction or a sci-fi texture pack, everything is just going to look wrong because that will be built specifically for creating sci-fi things, and it worked.
Yeah, some lend themselves more to survival, some are just purely for creative. I think the one we use is definitely for creative. We've got a lot of food items where just random items, and if you're jumping into it with just food default, some of the builds just don't make sense because you've not got that thing. So it's trying to make it a little bit more accessible. I think trying to use more neutral packs is what I tend to lean towards, I guess.
Yeah. Next question.
Are there any plans for future builds?
Well, we're always building something out. We're always
Yeah.
building something new, always something coming out of it. We've just finished a bunch of stuff on MINECON where we built a big town and things like that. But I think earlier today at our panel we announced that we're working on something to do with trains. Do you want to elaborate any more on that?
It it has a lot of potential for lots of trains
Wow.
to be in the
Descriptive.
same place. Hey, that's better than like it's just trains that I said earlier. But
So
no, it's
a long time ago we did a build called Train Station, the
Yes.
Great Train Station or the Grand Train Station, something like that. And that was actually one of the things that first gained us some attention with Mojang, because Notch at the time, who was the guy who head of Mojang and everything, he was tweeting about it, and he was like, look at this, look at
It was sort of a wake-up call for us to just like, oh wow, this has actually been recognized by the creators of the game. This is actually really cool.
So we kind of want to go back to that in a way and build
Yeah.
something with our current skill set that maybe is kind of an influence or a next step from that.
We basically wanted to look at like a lot of the old projects and just kind of go like, well, we see some room for improvement, kind of like what we were talking about in the book, and like it was just a good excuse to kind of go back to some nostalgic roots and like pay a little bit of like homage of like, hey, look how far we've come in X amount of years. So.
Yeah. Okay.
As time passes by, will the book get thicker and thicker?
I look at Steph. Will the book get thicker and thicker?
Hope
She
so.
hopes so.
Yeah.
There we go. So, I mean, we've already done that one updated edition where we've got 2 brand new chapters in there, and I think that kind of shows that Minecraft is evolving, and even though this is, written pages of literature, it can evolve as well, and it can, keep growing with Minecraft as that gets bigger and bigger as well. So, definitely.
I guess the pressure's on Mojang to keep pushing out new stuff for us to build about, really. So.
Yeah. Next, yeah.
How did you get so good at building?
I don't know. We just built.
I think it was just a lot of like messing around. Like as with everyone, when you first kind of jump into the game, like I hadn't really a clue what I was doing. But I think just as like we saw potential for just making really cool creative things, and we just started looking at more and more images that kind of inspired us to make stuff. We just kind of pushed through it a little bit, and then we had a really awesome team that's kind of developed and grown with us as we've sort of grown up as well. So like over the 5 years, we've had so many new members coming in, and like other people throwing their ideas in, and kind of each time we
I think we
meet a
learn
new
from those
person.
other people as well. Like they come in and they kind of teach us new things, or we teach them new things. And it's kind of like this big collaborative process where things just get better and better as time goes on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you were building the ship, you said you didn't make a mistake because of a reason. What was that reason?
I'm so glad someone else asked that question.
The reason is just that I knew how to build it so well. Like I had blueprints. Not that I had built it 9 times previous to that, and that was the 9th time of me filming that or anything like that. So it's
So a lot of trial and error you decided to scrap and redo rather than actually.
Yeah,
making a
totally.
mistake.
Didn't take me 2 days to do one shot. That was about 3 minutes of this presentation. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's good to be open about your mistakes.
Yeah,
Just-
thanks.
What build are you most proud of, and how long did it take to build?
I mean, the one that I'm kind of most proud of, and I guess it's one we covered earlier in a bit of detail, was Akane, because it was one I kind of sat with from start right until finish, and we just had so many people coming in with awesome ideas on that. But
And that's the Japanese, the big
that's
Japanese
the Japanese one.
Yeah.
We started that in February, and 7 months later, we actually got the build finished.
Yeah.
So we went a very long time kind of going back and forth, because it was one of those ones that once we started it and we had the scale of it, we really wanted to get the whole thing right. And we wanted to make sure that the whole thing was just like the best that we could actually push out there for that style. And I think we, personally, the whole team that worked on it, I was really proud of what they actually managed to come up with.
And on that, there was about an average of about 80 people building on that every night. About I say average, it went higher up into like 120 people and lows of like 60 people.
We definitely needed it though. I think we sort of realized after the first 2 days of building, we were like, because we always try and stick to like a schedule, say like, okay, we'll do this over, X amount of nights, like maybe like, 2 weeks. And then we kind of realized, okay, this is going to be 3 weeks. Okay, this is going to be a little bit more than 3 weeks. Okay, this is, oh man, this is going to be insane. So.
And that in itself was, I think, 21 hours of footage per camera, because there was 2 cameras filming it. And overall, I like throwing this out, there was over 18 terabytes of raw footage just for that one time lapse. And that just shows you how big that build was and how long it took us. So it's crazy. Okay.
If you could add any block to Minecraft, what would it be?
I had an answer for this a very long time ago, and I've forgotten it now.
It's interesting because there are so many blocks in Minecraft that I think new creative blocks and new things like that, because they've just added all these new like stone blocks in, like the granite and stuff like that. I think they're really interesting new additions. I really would like something kind of more fantasy based. Like there's all this stuff in the end, but it's only using like obsidian and like there's the end stone. I'd like something else in the end, like maybe an end brick or some sort of like object that you could place. Like I'd love to place those beacons that you could attach to the Ender Dragon. That'd be really cool if you could place those down, because you can't. They aren't like a creative menu thing. You have to go through crazy spawning to make those. But that would be really cool. Some sort of really cool animated block maybe that you could place down.
I kind of think that I'd go for like just more like interior stuff, I guess. So maybe like making bookshelves a bit more interactive, so you can actually store books that you write and put them in there, rather than just having to put them in chests. And the same with like food items as well, as like, you know, instead of putting them into a chest, you can put them into like a different style. So I guess
almost like a fridge. Maybe food would go bad in Minecraft, and you have to like kind of freeze it and stuff.
Make it even more difficult to
that'd be pretty
maybe not adding that last bit then.
I like that bit. That's good.
But I think maybe just more creative like storage stuff, I guess, would be kind of cool, because there is that in some mods, but I feel like I think I would really like just a normal default version, because we've got other doors and stuff now. So I think, you know, maybe some chests.
Yeah.
Do you ever try pixel art?
Pixel art, yeah, I mean that's a really interesting thing, because I mean like the designs on floors, sometimes that's done in like Photoshop, and then we kind of take those pixels over to Minecraft and kind of place those down. I mean, I don't think we've ever done anything like that for a time lapse. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've done anything pixel art.
I don't think we've had it, because it's always like a different. So I mean, there's a load of pixel art on our server. Like I think we have like a flat world called Flatlands, and it's got like a grid system that we've put into it. And I think every time we've gone through 3 now, I think, because we kind of filled them up and we just started new ones, and each time, like right around the spawn, is just like pixel art, like all around. Even every single time, like I don't know if it's the same guys that have just decided to do it, but there's always pixel art at the front of spawns.
And it's really cool pixel art as well. It's like really good. I mean, pixel art is such one of those things where you can either recreate something that you've seen or just do something else. Because like recently, the guy set the world record for making that giant pixel art thing, like hand placed every block, and it was the 3 images from Blizzard. It was Diablo, StarCraft, and World of Warcraft, and he built this huge image in Minecraft. And I saw the video of him like walking around, and it's like that just looks like a bunch of colors. And then he zoomed out to the map level, and it's just
I think that's the crazy side of it, is when you like, I've just never gotten my head around actually sitting down and actually working out, like, you know, there has to be like, you know, literally sitting on Photoshop, picking each one like on that side, and it's just.
I mean, it's definitely a really.
I almost don't want to know the magic behind it, because that would ruin like looking at it for me, I guess. But.
Yeah. I think we got time for like 3 more questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we can get through these.
Aside from Voxel Sniper, are you planning to use any other mods in your builds to make them?
I mean, that's an interesting thing. I mean, mods in builds in general is kind of a tricky thing.
It depends on, like, you know, I guess, because, you know, mods in their true nature don't always work.
And also,
when they do work,
would have to have the mods, wouldn't they? Like our entire build would have to have that mod.
And we'd have to set up on like a separate, like, you know, kind of server thing. It's all those sort of challenges of actually getting the build team to all kind of work on the same sort of platform, which is why the only sort of mods we use are kind of like utility ones, so like Voxel Sniper World, they're ones that like don't necessarily, you know, add anything to the game, but make it,
as
you
well,
know,
rather than mods. They're just plugins that everyone can have as soon as they join a server. So I mean, but like for filming, I use a mod which is Cam Studio, but that isn't really something we show off.
Yeah,
so.
But I mean, like all the Minecraft stuff we've done, we've kind of been playing around with some of the mods, but it's been more like adding the mods in afterwards. So you know, but I definitely think there's some cool ones in there that make building a lot more fun, but also dangerous at the same time, because if the mod gets updated or something goes wrong, then the whole thing is just kind of like left there, and you have to fix a lot of things. But
okay.
How many builds have you made throughout your entire time of building?
At least 100.
It's actually funny that like I tried to think of like, okay, we've done like sort of this many projects, and someone's like, you know, oh yeah, use the stats, you know, to find out how many blocks you've done, and I feel bad because I've not. You know, we've updated it so many times that the stats kind of get reset, so I've not got like my true amount of like, you know, blocks placed or anything. I'm kind of scared of that number, I think.
We've done 50 time lapses, and in those they're all different builds. And then personally, we've probably done like on the server is different things. We've probably done maybe 100 or 150 different builds as well.
Yeah, like an external project kind of things.
Or just like small builds that we do for fun and stuff like that. Yeah. And adding that all together, like between us, we've probably done nearly 500 builds probably in the last 5 years. Maybe 100 builds a year.
Is that like our quota? Should we try to stick to that?
Maybe.
I think no. I think we've fallen behind a little bit this year. So.
Okay,
last question.
What's the next build you guys will make?
I think once we kind of got like this train station, because I think it's like it's pretty much there now at this point. We just need to do like last few touches.
We're going to be working on the UN block by block stuff again, so that's going to be recreating public space in developing countries. That's something we work on, you know, all the time. So that's going to be one of those things that, you know, we'll get to be building on and things like that. And I think really there's always a new idea. There's always something else that someone else has come up with or that we come up with that we can build, which is really, really cool.
I definitely think that, like, revisiting like some of the older styles is a fun thing for us to do, but I definitely feel like there's another theme or something out there that we can definitely try. I mean, there's a lot of popularity in minigame stuff at the moment, and we've been making a few for like the tournament zones like here from like multiplayer for quite a while. So I think we've got a couple of cool ideas for some other game types that we've been playing around with, but never really had the time to sit down and structure. So I definitely think that I'd like to go back and sit and look at that sort of stuff. So
that's great. Okay, thank you all so much for coming to listen to us talk today.
Thank you
had
very
a nice
much.
time, and thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you very much.